This talk is all about coaching beyond the X's and O's. I'm going to talk about characteristics of great leaders and also a culture of excellence. Normally I have my laptop in front of me, so I don't like reading screens. So as you can tell, it's way up there. But can everybody see the first slide? Can anybody answer this question? Why should my kid play for you? Anybody go to Trevor's talk about fear? Nobody in this room wants to stand up. Yes? Why should my kid play for you?
Because I'm passionate about the game of basketball, and I want to teach my student athletes how to love the game and how to develop interpersonal skills through the game.
Excellent. Is that a good answer? Yes?
Because they want to.
Okay. Anybody else? How many of you have a written philosophy of coaching? That's the first thing that you should be doing as a coach. I wear many hats in the sports space. In addition to changing the game, I also have my company, Paradigm Sports. We do a lot of workshops with coaches. I'm a Hockey Canada CCP instructor. I've certified over 3,000 coaches. And I ask that question in every single clinic. How many of you have a written philosophy? And I get maybe 3 hands put up. Do you think that's important? Do you think a written philosophy is important? It's the first, it's either the first or the second question that parents are going to want to know. When they come to a parent meeting at the beginning of the season, what makes this coach tick? That's your philosophy. And what's your background? If you don't have it in writing, you can't share it immediately. And if you don't have it in writing, you're not accountable. That's key. And that's what this whole presentation is all about. How many of you know this guy? John Wooden. I picked this picture for this presentation for many, many reasons. Mainly because John hated this picture. John Wooden was not about results. He wasn't about all the victories. He wasn't the greatest coach of all time because of the 10 NCAA Division I championships that he won. 5 of them he had won concurrently. He wasn't the greatest coach of all time because of the 88 consecutive wins over 2 seasons. He was the greatest coach of all time because of how he connected with his players and the legacies they in turn left behind them. Because he wasn't about results, he didn't want to do this picture, but he did so because he knew when he retired that they were going to have a big void to fill, not just from the coaching front, but also from the player front. How many of you have watched John Wooden's TED Talk? If you haven't, please write it down. It is approaching 5 million views. And it's well after he retired, and they let him actually do the TED Talk. He's probably the only speaker that I've ever seen do a TED Talk sitting in a chair. And he told the story about how he evolved from being a teacher of English to coach of basketball and all the things that he believed in terms of success and the pyramid that he created. But the key thing that I got out of his talk is his 3 rules. Number 1 rule that John had was don't be late. He didn't want to ever start a practice late. He didn't want to start a game late or end late because he wanted to respect all the student athletes' time because they had many activities going on. In this day and age, probably wouldn't get away with it, even though I've tried to enforce it myself. His second rule, no profanity. And he was coaching 18 to 22-year-old men. And at the time, there was probably swearing, but now it's even more so. I've seen swearing happen as early as 9, 10, 11 years old, which is, in my eyes, totally inappropriate. That's actually one of my rules, no swearing on my teams. And his third rule, which was really key, is never criticize a teammate. Why do you think he had that rule? Never criticize your teammate. What does that pertain to? It's like deer in headlights. What did you guys eat for lunch? Because I was way up in that room and I was wondering where all the food was. Because I'm looking at this room, it's like a hockey clinic, and if the lights went out, we'd be all passed out. Unity. It also pertains to the word respect. Something that is missing in a lot of sport and we need to bring back. With my teams, I enforce that right from the get-go. But it's not just about respecting your teammates. Who else should you respect? Referees. Who are also referees that a lot of people ignore and forget about. Scorekeepers and timekeepers. They are officials. They sign score sheets in all sports, and they are probably the most disrespected, because when the kid gets a penalty, especially in hockey or some of the other sports, and they go into the penalty box, what are they doing? Having pissy fits. And who takes the brunt of that abuse? Scorekeepers and timekeepers. If any of my players ever did that, they're gone. They're out of the game. Who else should they respect? Their opponents. I think that's important now in this day and age with a lot of contact sports in jeopardy. Football with the concussion rates, CTE, hockey in jeopardy with respecting opponents is key. Respecting the coaches of the other team is key. But who else should kids respect? Themselves? Who's the big one? At the end of every hockey clinic, every workshop I do, the number one person that they should respect the most. Who is that? Who pays for them to play? Who drives them to all their events? Respect your parents. And what's the word you should share with your parents after every practice, every game, every time they bring you to an event? Thank you. Do we reinforce that important message anymore? That's really key. That's in every one of my teams. Thank your parents. Every time they bring you to practice. Okay? Another analogy I want to give you about John Wooden, and I'm not even sure where I got the story from, but well after he had retired, he was still being asked to go to a lot of conferences and speak at conferences, tell about his success story and what have you. And after he had gone and done his presentation, he liked to actually attend the conferences, so they saved him a seat in the auditorium. So instead of going right or left, he walked right down to the seats and he sat beside the coaches, and they're all giddy because this is John Wooden, he's the greatest coach of all time. And then the next presenter came up and he started talking. And about 5 minutes into that, John had already pulled out a notepad. He had been writing notes for about 5 minutes. And you know that expression, curiosity killed the cat? The coach right beside him was like, I don't understand. He's watching him take notes, and finally, he was kind of rude in a way. He whispers over to John while the other presenter is talking. He says, Mr. Wooden, I don't understand. You've already done your presentation. You've been retired for a long time. Why are you taking notes? And John finished off what he was writing, and he turns and he whispers to the other coach. He goes, because I might learn something. He was 78 years old. Coaching is all about lifelong learning. You're all here today to get an ongoing professional, and I applaud every single one of you, because many coaches somehow think once they've done a weekend clinic that they're done. In order for you to improve and become better, you have to continue to attend courses, clinics, summits, so that your players can get better. My favorite quote from John, what you are as a person is far more important than what you are as a basketball player. I don't actually like the words basketball player. I would rather he would have said athlete. Mainly because in this day and age, with specialization becoming so mayhemish, we're always focusing in on a specific sport, but it's about the importance of developing great athletes. This guy, it's kind of clicking, it's not. Any of you heard of Erkka Wisterlund? I have this because of hockey and we're in Canada, but he's from Finland. He's touted one of the best hockey coaches in the world. He's coached Finland teams in the World Juniors, the World Championships, the Olympics. This picture is when he was hugging Tino Solani after they won silver in the World Championships, I think in 2007 or 2008. And after that World Championship, he was interviewed. And the journalist asked them, okay, now you've been coaching for a long time, what's the greatest lesson that you could actually share with young coaches? And Erkka said, the thing that I learned after 15 years, there's so much more than writing drills up. There's so much more than developing skills, game management. What I really learned once I got to about 20 years of coaching, which is what I've kind of clued into, it's all about coaching the person. That's what coaching is all about. It's about coaching the person, not about winning results. And now we're going to go through an exercise that'll bring you through that. Everybody got 3 sticky notes? Did everybody get 3 Post-it notes? If you don't have 3 Post-it notes, please put up your hands. I handed them out so that you can get more. I'm not sure who's got the rest of the pads. We're going to go through an exercise right now. And this is something that I have actually done many, many, many times with now thousands of coaches. John O'Sullivan's done it, all the other Change the Game speakers. We've all done it in one way, fashion, or another. But the way that it really emulated with me is when we got to this version of it. We call it the sticky note exercise. Now on these Post-it notes, while they're being distributed, what I want you to do is write down the top 3 characteristics or qualities of the greatest coach, teacher, or boss that you ever had or may still have. So there'd be one phrase, one word per Post-it note, qualities and characteristics. Does that make sense to everybody? So you'll end up with 3 different characteristics / qualities once we're done. Done? Okay, so while they're wrapping, I'm going to tell you what to do with the Post-it notes. On this wall over here, to my left, just beside me to the left, if the characteristic that you wrote down pertained to the coach's knowledge, systems, strategies, tactics, technical skills, I want you to take your Post-it note, I want you to stick it on this wall here, okay? If the characteristic that you wrote down pertained to how the coach connected to you as an individual, your likes, your dislikes, even know what books you like to eat, the food you like to eat, the music you like to listen to, what you really liked about the sport you were playing, what subjects you liked in school. They connected to you as an individual. I want you to take your Post-it notes and stick them over on this wall. So that's the connecting wall. This is the knowledge wall. Okay? Ready? Go. Okay, what do you see? Doesn't matter how I've done this. It doesn't matter how many times I've asked that question. The thousands upon thousands of coaches, the result is always the same. What do you think the percentage is over on the left-hand side? Or on this side? 75, 80%. This side is usually 15 to 20%. But why, if that's the case, if these are the characteristics of the greatest coaches that you ever had, do most coaches spend most of their time here? System, tactics, strategies, results, winning. That's that wall. That's what's, in another term, is transactional coaching. Transformational coaching. So if you want to become a great coach, you still need to do this. I did this exercise with the gymnastics coaching group. And as you know, gymnastics is one of the only sports, early specialization. So a lot of their coaches are teenagers, 17, 18, 19 years old. They came up to me after we did this, and about 5 of them said, does that mean we don't work on the skills? No, you still need to work on skills. That's the clinics, that's the summits, that's the conferences. That's the knowledge. You all need that. Kids want coaches with knowledge, but they also want coaches with this. Give me a shout out of some of the words that you put here, and I'll tell you what they pertain to. Anybody? Sorry? Okay. Respect. Passionate. Encouragement. Intensity. Genuine. Demanding is probably one of them. Anybody write demanding? Sacrifice. What about the word caring? Empathy, compassionate. That's number one. John jokes he's got his kids actually, and I've actually had my kids. I have this big box now that I've accumulated, because once we go through this exercise, I don't like leaving the shed dirty, so I go pick up all these notes. And he's counted all these words. Caring is always number one. The other one was actually talked about, passion. Coaches that are truly passionate about their sport, what do they do for kids? If you truly love your sport, you're passionate about your sport, what are you doing for those kids? You're instilling that passion in them. You're planting that seed so they love that sport just like you do. And they ultimately will keep playing year after year after year. The greatest reward that you have as a coach is when the kid comes back the next year with a big smile on their face. That's your reward. So we focus here, you can start evolving to great coaching. Already touched on that one. Okay, culture. Is that also important for teams? Everybody go, yep. Culture's important. Now, because we've got, this is a half hour, I'm not going to get into an expanded version of culture, but that's key to your teams, particularly at the beginning of the season. If you want to have a successful season, is it defined by wins and losses? Or is it defined on what the kids learn and how they develop throughout that season? It's usually the latter. Some of the, I wouldn't call them the worst teams, but the least winning teams I ever coach, whether it be hockey, all the multiple sports, rugby, we had the most fun because we did this exercise at the beginning of the season. And this is something, it's really, really simple, and I highly encourage you to do this when you start your season. I call this the circle of trust exercise. Okay, you can't read this from a distance. But basically what that is it starts out as an empty piece of paper, and I distribute it to all the players on my team, and I basically ask them, I want you to write down the top 3 characteristics that you want your teammates to have. Top 3. And then they all come up with their top 3, and this was my rugby team that I coached this past spring. We never won a game. We had a ton of fun on it. We had a great season in terms of learning life skills and culture. But they came up with these, and I can't even read it from a distance. There's no way you can read it. But I do remember some of the words. Determination, never giving up, overcoming adversity. I had one kid, okay, this is high school senior rugby. They're 15, 16, 17 years old. I had a kid say, fun, like that. And we, literally, everybody on the team just fell over. What do you mean fun? He says, well, we got to respect the opponent, and we got to have fun doing it. So guess what his nickname was for the season, right? But every single player on our team then signed this document, and we call this our culture statement for the season. And at every practice, I'd pull it out. I don't actually still have the original because it got destroyed in a rainstorm. But every single practice, we'd go through one of those words, and we talk about it. We talk about respect. We talk about adversity. We talk about having fun, and all those key things. And when they demonstrated in a practice or a game, they would reward themselves. We called it kudos. Give your teammates kudos when they demonstrate our culture statement of the day. We didn't win a game. In fact, I think in 9 games, because high school season is very short, I think we only scored 3 tries. And one of our tries that we scored was actually called back because the referee thought he didn't touch the ground once he got past the try line. I'm going, they're up 56-0. You could not give us the try. But, some referees just take it a little too serious. But this was what every parent came to me after the season. And how many of you are coaching high school sports? How much interaction do you actually have with parents? A lot? Some? None? A lot? My rugby team, I didn't talk to any parents until the end of the season. They just let me do my thing, I guess because they figured out, and high school scores usually happen right after school, so a lot of them have to take work off. I think at best we had 3 parents in the stands, so I never had the mayhemish that you have in hockey or soccer or some of the other sports. So I highly recommend you go through that exercise. That also pertains to who you are as a coach. Just a show of hands, how many of you coach for over 5 years? Okay, over 10 years, over 15. So as you continued down your coaching path, did you clue into what little you knew? To how clueless we really all are? When I was 15 years in, I was like, oh my God, I had an epiphany moment. I really don't know much. Because there's so much to coaching than writing a drill or running a practice or a game. And especially in this day and age with the new generation of kids, the millennials and Generation Z, there's so much difference from prior generations that we need. So we call this the tip of the iceberg analogy. Where most coaches are 5 years or less, they're just scratching the surface, that 15% of the knowledge base. As they evolve and they continue to coach, and they continue to coach hopefully with a lot of passion, they start dipping below the water, and that's really who they are as people. And to ultimately become the John Woodens and the Phil Jacksons and all the great coaches of the world, the more you tap into below the water, the better off you become as a coach. Is trust important? Is trust important? Yes. I learned a great from a mentor of mine who sadly has passed away. He probably forgot more about hockey and softball than I ever knew, or would ever know. And he shared with me in an Anto, when we were sitting on the bench, the girls were warming up. He said, you know, I figured this out probably about 10 years ago, because softball's such a short season, it's about 10 weeks. He says, you can't let the kids earn trust and vice versa. So you as a coach have to extend it right from the get-go. And that's tough as a coach, extending trust to a player that you don't know. And sometimes you do know them, but every season he would trust every single player from the get-go. And I started doing that, and it was amazing the transformation I had with my players, because if you wait half a season before you start trusting your players, you've done them a disservice. But they also want to have you earn their trust. And it's really important. So 4 key components of trust is your ability. That's this whole knowledge component. Knowing the game, the strategies, the tactics, the rules, teaching them the right techniques, understanding how to break down skills and what have you. That's that part. Believability. And this is a funny story. I shared it with a whole bunch of people, and it's actually true. And a lot of people kind of look at me and go, there's no way. I learned believability from a 7-year-old. From a 7-year-old. In a hockey practice many, many years ago, I always believe in having fun time at the end of the practice, fun time at the beginning of the practice. So get them on the ice with some fun time, and end the practice with fun time to reward for the practice. One of our practices went longer early in the season than I anticipated, so before I knew it, the Zamboni guy was opening the gate, and I'd call the kids off the ice. No fun time. We just did our skill stations and what have you, and one of the last players to skate up the ice comes up to me, and I'm not lying about this, is exactly how he did it. Coach, you didn't honor your promise. He was 7. I was held accountable by a 7-year-old and used the word honor. I was like, and guess what he did every single practice for the rest of the season? Coach, you gonna honor your promise? I learned believability way, way back when. If you're gonna talk the talk, you better walk the walk, especially in this day and age with today's generation of kids. To establish and maintain trust, as soon as you don't do something you say you're going to, you've lost them, probably for the season. In terms of connecting, it's an exercise that I highly encourage you to do. How many of you ask your players why they play their sport? Anybody? This is an exercise I started doing many, many years ago. I shared it in the earlier presentation. I highly encourage you to do this early in the season. Ask them why they're playing the respective sport, whether it be hockey, baseball, basketball, whatever sport it is you're coaching. Why are you playing? What do you think the answer is going to be? I already know. What's the answer going to be? It doesn't matter what level, whether it's recreation, AA, AAA, Olympic, I can tell you what the answer is. Anyone want to take a stab at it? Because it's fun. It doesn't matter what level they play. Even Hockey Canada, our world or gold team in 2010, What did Mike Babcock tell the team before they went out and won that gold medal? Their last game. Just go out there and have fun. These guys are getting paid $7 million a year to play a game, and they're still playing for fun. So it doesn't matter. That's the number one thing. Now, what's fun about sport? That's the second question. Ask them. And what are they going to tell you?
Winning.
Okay, can I leave now? Like, am I done? Seriously, on the winning topic, if you, I actually touched on it in my earlier presentation, winning does come up. It does come up. But I'll give you a Manivisic study, which is not on one of these slides. Manivisic probably did a break-grounding study, but it's very similar to what I'm walking through as next slide. She asked kids why they played sports. 95% of them said because it was fun. Then she actually asked them, what's fun about sport? She came up with 81 formal characteristics and formal 81 defined characteristics. Where was winning ranked out of 81 characteristics? Anybody know? Somebody went to the earlier presentation. So, can we give any brownie points? Is there any? Okay, 48, so bottom half of the list. No matter what survey I ever come across, winning is always the bottom half if it shows up at all. When I ask kids my question, why you play, what's fun about it, probably I think 16, 17 teams, several hundred kids, not once did a kid say winning. Top 5 reasons why sport are fun. Number 1 is when they have an opportunity to work on their craft, their skill, when they get an opportunity to get better. Number 2, and this is really important for all of you, when a coach treats them with respect. That's the second reason why sports is fun. Number 3 is when they get playing time. Tell us the subject I'm very, very passionate about. You sit kids, you're sending them a message. What messages you're sending to a kid when you're sitting them? Especially early on. This is before they become up to elite level, they get to college, stuff like that. They're not worthy. And then eventually they quit because the coach doesn't believe in them. The coach should be able to develop every single player on their team. The 4th reason that is fun is when they get along with their teammates, and 5th is when they play well as a team. And it doesn't mean winning. Those are top 5, and that's why kids play. And then the 3rd thing I ask my kids every single season, what's not fun about sport? And what are the things they're going to say? I'm going to bring Trevor down here, and I'm going to get those people with fear that don't want to put their hand up. We're all on the same page here. We're all in the same room. So you don't have to be fearful. What is not fun about sports?
Being yelled at.
Yes. By whom?
Parents.
The adults. So they would say adult criticism would either be parents or coaches. That came up all the time, especially as the kids. And I found that it wasn't like the young age groups, 7, 6, 5, no, because that's when parents are spiking their coffee with Baileys, right? And everybody's got a big happy face on them and everybody's enjoying it. But once we get into Adam, 9, 10, that's when things change. That's why John wrote the book, because he was watching his 5-year-old daughter play soccer, and everybody's happy, and everybody's enjoying it, and nobody cares who scores on whom. And behind him, there's a U10 soccer game, which was overly competitive, and it happened to be the association he was the coordinator for. He went, I got to change this. And that's why I wrote the book. Okay? What are the 2 other things that's not fun?
Practice.
Practice should be fun. 2 other things, make it quick because I got one short video I want to show you at the end. Short benches. When coaches play their favorites. I had that come up starting at 11 years old all the way through to 18. Every single time I asked that question. And the 3rd one, ride home. Probably the least talked about, but the biggest contributor why kids are quitting. So that's what's not fun. And then last but not least, I'm a big believer that in dependability, I think the head coach should be at games and practices, be the first one there and the last one to leave. There's nothing more frustrating, especially, I don't know how familiar any of you are with the spring hockey concept. A lot of spring hockey programs will have a coach like 4 teams in spring, and he'll never be there for all the games because they go in all the same tournaments. Is that fair to the kids? No. I think the coach should be there for everything. I'm I'm going to not even go on this because Trevor's going to touch on this in about 2 hours. But I know he's going to talk about coach card. So last one I'm going to talk about is curse of knowledge. How many, when you first started coaching, if you had played at a high level, had difficulty coaching to start, breaking down a skill? Everybody put your hand up, because you did. I know when I first started coaching hockey, 5-year-olds, and I played to, I didn't play to junior, I played to midget, and I was like, how do I stop? How do we do a wrist shot? That's the curse of knowledge. Was Wayne Gretzky a great coach? Couldn't come down. He couldn't come down with the younger age groups. He couldn't figure it out. It's called the curse of knowledge. So don't assume because you actually ran a drill or you wrote something on a chalkboard or you gave them an assignment that they actually learned it. For me, with all the kids that I've coached, it takes there's 4 key things. They need to see it, so that's writing it up on a board. They need to hear it, and that's where your presentation skills come into play, where you actually are talking about it on the board. They need to see it, so that's where the demonstration comes into play. And some of them need to do it. Does anybody have a drill killer on their team? That you still got to go all 4 of them, and they're usually at the last of the line because they have to see it, do it, hear it. Everybody's got 1 or 2 of those players. You got to understand, everybody learns differently. Don't assume because you taught it, they learned it. Okay, I'm going to finish up the presentation with a great video. This is what a great coach sounds like after a traumatic loss.
You guys are doing that. Something, okay? That's pride. Okay? Pride. You're going to take that for the rest of your life when you provided for a time and home. You had the whole place jumping, right? You had the whole state jumping. You had New England jumping. You had ESPN jumping, okay? Because one of line, they're like fighters. They're like sportsmen. They're like guys who don't quit. They're like guys who play the game the right way. Okay? If everyone who played baseball, okay, but the common Americans, okay, this would be the greatest game. This would be the greatest game. The rest of you guys have learned along the journey, okay, you're never going to forget. Okay? But we're going to have some more fun. We're going to have 2 more days of fun. Okay, you guys earned that right to have a lot of fun. When you walk around, okay, this ballpark in the next couple of days, okay, they're going to look at you and say, hey guys, you guys were awesome. I'm not going to have to tell you, because everybody has said you guys are awesome. 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 Absolutely awesome. So we're going to enjoy the next 2 days, because we deserve it. We've been going since the 12th, but we're going to enjoy it. Okay, it's okay to cry. Because we're not going to play baseball together anymore. But we're going to be friends forever. Okay? Friends forever. And our little league careers have ended on the most positive note that could ever be. Okay? Ever be. There's only going to be one team that's going to walk out of here, guys. World Series champions. Only one. Okay? Only one. Okay? We got down to the nitty-gritty. We're one of the best teams in the world. Think about that for a second. For the world. Right? So we need to go see our parents because they're so proud of you. Okay? But one more. I want a big hug. I want everyone to come in for one big hug. Okay? One big hug. One big hug. Then we're gonna go home. Then we're gonna go celebrate. Hey boys, then we're gonna go celebrate with our parents, and then tomorrow we're gonna celebrate, then we'll come back home to a big parade. Okay? Yeah? I love you guys. I love you forever. You're giving me the
bet coach to coach your kid? Everybody put your hand up. Because he did such a brilliant job handling a very traumatic challenge of losing a game in one of the toughest, and I still think it's still early for the Little League World Series. I think he should be pushed to like 14, 15. 12, to me, is early. That's LTAD. But he's a great coach, and I wish I would have seen this video and I would have got some advice how to handle my Adam team when we lost in double overtime by a goal in a 6-5 game, and I had 4 kids that just bawled forever, it seemed like, for probably 5 minutes. We were in the dressing room, they're still bawling, and then finally, and I don't know why it was my son, I have no idea, he just got up and he goes, guys, stop. And I go, let's see, where's he going with this? And my assistant coach said the same thing. And he goes, guys, we got silver water bottles, because we won silver. They're about this big. Their trophy was only this big. So we're the winners. And I think everybody started cheering.